Hello and welcome back to Exothermic Plays Games. I'm Exothermic and the date today is Sunday, November 3rd, 2024. I've been doing a countdown of my favorite video games of all time through each day of the year, and coming in at number 59 is Mirror's Edge. Mirror's Edge is a divisive game. Some people, like myself, absolutely adore this game, and many people thought it fell kind of flat. The most important thing about the game to me is that it made 14-year-old Exo totally reevaluate video games as an entire medium. I'll get the divisive thing out of the way up front this time, because it's really the crux of the game regarding game feel and narrative. There are guns in Mirror's Edge. You can pick them up. You can shoot them. Shooting them sucks. And that's genius. There's a whole lot of reasons I'm talking about this game in November, and I talked about the reboot in July, but this is the biggest one. The game is about running, and you do a ton of parkour and keep trying to have tempo and flow to everything you do. Your character, Faith Connors, while technically trained to use guns, is not a soldier. She's not some badass that is meant to be a one-woman army in the face of absolute destruction. She's just a person living outside the law with a quick wit and even quicker feet. And she's determined to do the right thing. Your enemies have guns, and you can slow down, fight them all head on, and shoot them dead. But it's very slow and clunky, and quite often not the best way to approach things. If you look at first-person action games I was playing in 2008 before this, it was predominantly Halo 3 and Mass Effect. Those are games where you can just mow down entire armies without thinking a whole lot about it. But then, when I played Mirror's Edge for the first time, I immediately felt some of, if not the greatest immersion I have ever felt in a game, and that's still true today. Guns in video games are cool. It's awesome to just drop a ton of lead into virtual enemies and see their heads explode. Real life? Not so much. I actually hate guns. I'm not saying people shouldn't be allowed to have them or anything like that, you do you, but I'm reasonably certain I will never in my entire life buy a gun. Do I technically know how to use one? Like, safely and responsibly? Yes. Do I want to? Absolutely not! I don't even want to hold a gun, let alone fire one. Also, parkour is pretty cool. So here's a character that would much rather not shoot her enemies, even though they're trying to kill her, and instead wants to run through them and leave them behind. I had never felt so seen in an action hero before, and make no mistake, Faith is a hero. She's a runner dealing in secrets and espionage in a tightly controlled city with citizens maintained by constant government surveillance and media manipulation. Runners traverse rooftops, billboards, cranes, and construction sites with parkour in order to skirt the surveillance of the city and help resistance against its oppression. They see things a bit differently. The visuals of the game are absolutely stunning and hold up phenomenally for a 16-year-old game. The idea that I played this on the Xbox 360 is still remarkable to me. The game still has some of the greatest visual direction ever made, and it's also just so simple. While the world isn't actually this, what you see is a city that is white and clean and devoid of color. This is as much a gameplay tool as it is a narrative one. Runners see that the world around them is devoid of life, with the chains of their government choking them as they grasp for air. But then, items that can be helpful in the path to complete the level turn red as you need them, not only creating visual clarity for a player in an extremely fast-paced game, but also signifying how running equates to a path for freedom. Faith was a small child when her parents were involved in mass protests throughout the city against the government's new regime. Unfortunately, all they earned for their efforts was a swift death. Her and her sister, Kate, drifted apart, moving in opposite directions towards a shared goal. While Faith trained to become a runner and work outside the law, Kate became a cop and tried to fix the system from the inside. The story really kicks off when Faith picks up on a police scanner that there were shots fired at a building her sister was at to investigate a previous break-in, and she heads on over. What she winds up finding is a man dead and her sister framed for murder. The real problem, however, is that the dead man was Robert Pope, a friend of their parents and prominent politician campaigning for mayor on exactly the platform that they wanted when they were murdered 18 years ago. He could have brought real change to the city, but instead, his murder was the catalyst for a different kind of upheaval. The story for Mirror's Edge is fairly short and full of twists, turns, and intrigue. I don't want to spoil it all here, in part because the game is frequently on sale for only $5 and sometimes even less, plus the action really pulls you into it, making it much better to play than to watch or hear. The animated cutscenes are a bit hit or miss, I think, ranging from excellent to distracting, but I understand why they did it that way. I know the trick to making the graphics in the game so good with what's now considered very limited hardware was that they didn't render your body most of the time, so you were really just kind of floating forearms and legs running around, and it would have been hard to do most of those cutscenes in the realistic graphic style without taking a major drop in quality. I definitely love the story though. It's very focused, it's very good. The small cast of characters all stand out with great dialogue that's consistent throughout the whole game, and there's a lot of really interesting things you can take from some of the turns that they make. And it's really, the more I've played it and the more I've thought about it, the more I like it. And I liked it a lot to begin with. If nothing else, I strongly encourage you to look up the final scenes of the game and the credits, because that scene itself and then the song that plays are just great together. If you just want the song, it's Still Alive by Lisa Miskovsky. The rest of the music in the game is great too, as some of the best ambient and workout music I've ever listened to. You've been seeing a lot of it in the background here, but I do want to touch on the level design. Unlike Catalyst, which is an open world game, you're definitely much more on rails here, but I don't mind it one bit. Every level is made up of some stellar rails. There's great puzzles, there's great running, and the actual combat parts are really strategic as opposed to just blasting everywhere. There's a built-in speed trial mode too, where you just do timed versions of each segment of the game and try to beat your own times. While the red items do help you provide a path, they're not the only path, and it's a lot of fun to tinker and try to shave down that time. Not only did Mirror's Edge radically change my perspective of what a first-person action game could be, it also made me reconsider my views on story length. My background in story-driven games had largely been JRPGs and other long, drawn-out 20-plus hour experiences. Then, there was one week that I played through the entirety of Mirror's Edge 4 times. It taught me a lot and radically changed how I felt about various elements for game design, all while giving me plenty of challenge and fun. And for that, I will always love this game. Join me tomorrow as I talk about my 58th favorite game where I need to save the world, but I hope I don't get fleas.